Thrown for a loop. Just as both parties began talks on the so-called DACA program, a federal judge steps in to reinstate it. So now what? We'll take a look at it on this edition of Politicking. Welcome to Politicking. I'm Larry King. On Tuesday, a federal judge blocked President Trump's controversial plan to end the Obama-era initiative known as the Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals, or DACA, as it's more commonly known. This ruling comes on the heels of a much-publicized meeting at the White House between the president and leaders of both parties to address their differences on this issue. So what does the ruling mean for the future of DACA? Funding for the president's border wall along the southern border, which he places a condition of any Republican movement toward easing his tough stance on the DACA program. Let's start with Democratic Congressman Steve Cohen of Tennessee, ranking member of the House Judiciary Subcommittee on the Constitution and Civil Justice. He also serves on the House Ethics Committee, and he joins me from Statuary Hall in the U.S. Capitol. All right, what do you make of the judge's ruling, and how will this affect where this goes?
Well, I haven't had a chance to read it. I've heard about it, and many of my colleagues are very happy about the ruling. I'm sure it's going to be appealed. I tend to doubt, as it works its way up, I tend to doubt that it'll be upheld. But I do think there's an issue concerning using regulations as distinguished from legislation, although the president can prioritize who he chooses to have our forces, agencies send out of the country. We can't do everybody at once, and as President Obama prioritized, people who committed crimes and violent crimes were first, and the DACA kids were last, and he could do that. But he went a little further, giving them an opportunity to stay in the country in a different system, which is generally a legislative act. So I think it's going to end up having to be a legislative act, and it'll be dealt with in Congress eventually.
So as a legislative act, what's going to happen to all these kids?
Well, I think they'll stay, because I think the Democrats are pretty much 100% lined up for them to stay, and quite a few of the Republicans think it's the right thing to do too. The problem, I think, is that there's a lot of constituents on the Republican side, and some on the Democratic side too, that are concerned about illegal immigration. These kids aren't the problem, but they may be the ones that become the victims of it, and there'll be some of those people don't want to see anything that resembles full opportunity to continue to live and be citizens of the United States for these kids. It's going to be tough to get together a measure, but I think we can. Even President Trump yesterday, I'm sure he was off cue, but when he said that agreed with Senator Feinstein that we ought to deal with a clean DACA bill first, and then he was corrected by Kevin McCarthy, who kind of said, President, you're off the program, you're kind of off the reservation. He doesn't have a hard position, I think, on this, except politically. And politically, his base, I'm sure, hit him big time after that statement and said, we want to have that wall and don't do anything without the wall. So he's probably back to the political position he was in earlier, and we'll have to see what happens.
The president didn't seem to know what a clean bill was.
No, I don't think he does. I think a clean bill to him is the Jockey Club, and it's $430.
Republican Senator Jeff Flake of Arizona said that the judge's ruling worries him because it'll lessen the urgency of Congress to act.
It's possible, and Jeff may be right on that, but I think we're going to have an urgency to act because the kids are in jeopardy, and you don't know when a court might rule, but it's a possibility. Congress puts things off till the end too often and doesn't deal with issues in a realistic manner.
You think DACA will be solved before the midterms?
I suspect they will, because I think otherwise, I think it's going to be a tsunami. It's not going to be a wave, but I think it could be such a tsunami if they don't deal with DACA that you can forget. I think the Republicans could be down to 185, 190 members.
Really?
They could be really wiped out.
Will there be a government shutdown later the month?
I don't think there will be. I suspect there'll be a short-term CR. Neither party wants a shutdown. The Republicans, of course, have the majority in both houses and can control it, but they probably can't get 10 Democrats to vote for some of the things they want in the Senate. That'll be a problem. We'll just have to see, but I don't think there'll be a shutdown. I think there'll be a CR, and we'll keep punting the ball down the field.
Two Californians are leaving. They're not going to run for re-election, Ed Royce. And now Darrell Issa is the latest to say he won't rerun. What's your read on that?
Well, I think they saw the polls don't look good for them. They both have districts that Hillary Clinton carried by a pretty good number. And I think it's not only those seats, but seats where we were close are probably going to tip Democrat. I think they saw a difficult time to get reelected. Ed Royce has done a great job as a foreign affairs chair, and he's been an outstanding representative. He and Darrell Issa are both very bright, and they both brought a lot to Congress, and they're both friends of mine, and I'll miss their service. But I understand when the tsunami comes, you want to not be out there on a surfboard.
You really think it's going to be that bad for the Republicans in November?
And I think they deserve it.
Steve, it's always great to talk with you. Thank you.
You're welcome, Larry. Take care.
We'll be right back with more politicking. Larry Elder is the conservative nationally